welcome to Helicon West. Does that sound okay? Good volume. I'm Ashley Wells, your MC this evening and director of the Creative Writing and Art Contest. Thank you for being here, celebrating our students. It's one of the best nights, so we really appreciate your time here. It's a really special night. Helicon West is an uncensored public reading series. We host published authors and community writers to showcase all levels of skill and craft. We welcome open mic readers. We welcome donations to keep Helicon West going. You'll find a sign-up sheet for open mic and bookmarks with a QR code link for donations at the coffee bar in the back. There are cookies back there as well. Please help yourself. There's also a sign in for cookie justification, so also sign that if you can, if you think of it. So help yourself to cookies or some Cafe Ibis decaf while you're signing up or donating, and be sure to use a lid for your coffee to prevent accidental spills. Helicon West humbly acknowledges that we are here on the territory of the Northwestern Band of Shoshone Nation. We are grateful for our sponsors and partners, Sugar House Review, the Logan Library, the USU English Department, Cafe Ibis, and many community volunteers. For information, interviews, and more, visit heliconwest.wordpress.com. Please keep the doors closed during this evening's reading as well. Tonight is a very special celebration of our extremely talented students, our winners of the annual Creative Writing and Art Contest. We'll hear our winners read their incredible poetry and prose and see the art winners' work displayed behind me. This night in this contest would not be possible without the St. Hollow staff and the judges who very generously shared their time and expertise, so thank you all. So we'll start with our first place undergrad winners. We have Brooke Haight reading poetry, Ava Nelson reading fiction, and Chloe Sheevy reading nonfiction. So please welcome our first place winners.
Can people hear me all right? Okay, yeah, up close. Okay. Hi everyone, thank you all for coming out to support. This is really cool to see everyone here. I feel kind of bad for my nonfiction and fiction, counterparts because I have to pick a section to read from their wonderful pieces, but my poems are all pretty short, so I'm just going to read all of them for you. So this first poem that I'll read for you guys is titled Cycles. Cycles. Backsliding like a sun beneath the horizon. A sun in my bed like a broken ceiling. Breaking in, stealing, like men whose names start with sigh. Women whose names end with C, like a wave of tumbling spiders. Stumbling climbers like a palm sweaty rock. Tossed up and down like a backsliding daughter. This next piece is titled Fill Me. August. Shoving entire fists down my throat just to feel that pit again. A cozy kind of emptiness from belonging nowhere. The world is alone with me in it. The gum I swallowed still remembers him good. Aching out all over, pardon me, it's just this summer, the way it leaves. There is something soft dying in those nights that purrs under my hand. It should be about a kiss, but I want so much more than something in my mouth. And this last one is titled Your Nature, and I guess just for some fun context, this one was written almost entirely from dreams I had, so it's kind of weird. Your nature. It was never about your hair, and other things they'll say after the fact. Father or eldest daughter, we will rip it out all the same. But where did the dogs go? They were talking in church about her missing sister, trading monster for monster. They saw the woman dying and pointed to the spider before the man like it makes a difference. I dream of his lovers more often than him. Paper-strewn teacup Sundays in dusty sunlight, wishful thinking, but no strays allowed. They tell me I want to pull his chin hair out with my teeth because I have eyes he doesn't want living in his house anymore. Pretend your head falls off from nodding in a mirror. Say it's not your sister dying. My teeth would bare the instant my body couldn't stop them. This is biting knuckles till they callous and waking up choking on your throat, paralyzed in the silhouette of your mom. My cobweb would be a single strand floating next to nothing if it could. I don't want to kill. Thank you.
Hi, I'll be reading from my story Breathe, which is about two boys who attend the same church. One, Eddie, who loves church, and his friend David, who secretly has feelings for his best friend while feeling uncomfortable there. Christmas came and went. They had now reached mid-January. David was expecting Eddie soon, but as he ventured outside to wait for him, his mother called out, "David, David, come join me." David eyed his mother warily before slowly joining her on the house's back porch. The snow had begun to melt, leaving the ground soggy in its wait for spring. He sat on the very edge of the rocking chair beside hers, as though he would be burned if he made himself comfortable. He flinched when pages of smothering doctrine were dumped in his hands. David stared down at the Bible. The pages were crisp, a single bookmark tucked where his mother had likely read this morning. "Read with me, won't you?" Sweat clung cold to the back of David's neck, and he tried to suck in a breath, but the air splintered in his lungs. The sound of water dribbled in his ears, low for now, but there. "What?" David muttered. "Why?" He hadn't read a Bible in months. "Aloud, please." His mother smiled, voice lined with steel. There was no escaping this. David could not recall what lay in the verses that he read to his mother, only that with each word it felt as though a rigid hand clamped tighter and tighter around his throat. Water rushed angrily in his ears, and the book in his lap blurred. Only after he had choked out the words for 15 minutes, perhaps longer, did his mother let him stop. Reaching up to cup his face with phantom gentleness, she brushed away the tears that soaked his cheeks. "You must be feeling God strongly," she said proudly, and David couldn't breathe. He shoved the book into her lap, scrambled up from his chair, and stumbled down the porch steps. He ran, ripping away from the path and into the woods, ignoring the cries of anger that chased him but didn't follow. His legs burned with effort, and branches of pine tore at his face, but David didn't stop running until he collapsed, the uneven bark of a pine tree pressed firmly against his back. There was a loud rasping sound, like grating metal, and David realized that it was him. His breath scraped and burned. "David, David!" Pine needles flew as someone skidded to a stop before him, crouching and gripping his shoulders. "David, I need you to breathe with me, okay?" When he heard Eddie's voice, David dragged his head up from where he had curled into his knees. Dusty light illuminated the boy's hair, and his soft brown eyes were fixed on David. He was so beautiful, and he was David's. I can't," David choked, chest shuddering with sporadic gasps. "Eddie, it hurts. I can't." Eddie pulled David into his chest. Okay, I think I understand you better now." I can't do this," David could only gasp, jagged breaths slicing at his lungs. "I can't do this anymore. It hurts." Eddie hugged him tighter, and the pressure was safe. David chased it, digging his face into his friend's chest, Eddie's collarbone pressing against his temple. "I want you to breathe with me, okay? In for 3, out for 4, okay?" Eddie murmured. David managed a shaky nod, twisting his fingers into Eddie's shirt. The flannel tickled his knuckles. Eddie's chest rose against his cheek, and David did his best to fill his lungs along with that movement. Eddie's sweet scent filled his lungs, and the guided focus began to dry out the river in his ears. The minutes rolled by until he could only hear his best friend's soft counts, and yet Eddie's heartbeat pressed gentle against his ear. David sniffed. Even after his breaths had evened, he couldn't make himself move away. "Thank you," he whispered into his best friend's shirt. "I'm always here for you." Eddie's fingers combed gently through David's hair. His voice trembled. "I think I understand you better now," he repeated, and neither boy said anything more. David didn't know how much time slipped past as they huddled against the tree, but it must have been hours. Finally, when red and purple clouds began to mingle with shadow, he forced himself to pull away. "How much of that did you see?" Even through the fast-approaching darkness, David could see that Eddie's eyes were glassy, sorrow having dyed the rims red. "A lot." His voice was scratchy from disuse. "Does that happen often?" David snorted. It was wet. He rubbed at his aching eyes with the heel of his hand. A headache had begun to press hot against his temples. Yeah, you could say that. David. Eddie's voice broke, and David's head snapped up. Is this what church is for you? Something like a smile pulled at David's lips, but it tasted bitter. I guess you could say that. Then why do you come every week? Eddie's eyes searched David's face as though if he stared hard enough, he could peel back all of David's layers and understand him at his most raw. A flutter of nerves made themselves known in David's chest. David's eyes darted down before he forced them back to Eddie's tear-smudged face. To see you, mostly. His voice was barely a breath, the words trembling in the air between their bodies. Eddie's breath caught, and David rushed to fill the silence, suddenly panicked. And, usually my parents lay off about how much of a, disappointment I am if I... David. Eddie's arms wrapped back around his shoulders, but this hug felt different. Electricity wriggled along David's arms and tickled the back of his neck. He couldn't stop the shiver that traipsed down his spine as he returned the embrace. Eddie's nose was cold where it pressed against the side of David's neck. His breath was hot on David's collarbone. Their legs pressed together, knees tangled in a new closeness. An icy raindrop splattered onto David's shoulder, and he swore, jerking back. Darkness had now settled among the trees, the moonlight glancing off the increasing drops of rain. Come on, David said, running a hand through his wet hair and climbing to his feet. Eddie remained on the ground, though his eyes followed David's ascent. Water streamed down his flushed cheeks, and his eyes glittered with something new. David hadn't seen it often enough to recognize it before. Eddie, come on, he said softly, extending a hand. Eddie took it and held on. Eddie, it's okay, David cut in gently. You don't have to put it into words before you understand it. Eddie's eyes flashed with gratitude. I think I do understand, he murmured, but he said nothing more as they hurried back to their houses through the rain.
My name's Chloe. I want to thank you all for being here. Being an emerging writer in Utah, there's always this one essay that needs to be written, and that's the one where you leave the church. So this is my take on that, but it's also much more than that. It's about rabbits, it's about the moon, and most importantly, it's about my mother. I was never taught to search for the man in the moon. His face, created by the sea of serenity, the sea of rain, the sea of clouds, the sea of islands, and the sea of vapors, eludes me on clear, cold nights. Instead, I see my mother's rabbit, her long ears curving around the edges of the moon, the mortar sitting in front of her, her paws grasping the pestle to her beating heart. Stardust mixes with her cotton tail. Look at the rabbit in the moon, my mother tells me. She's pounding poi. Our church, with its weathered orange bricks and sleek white steeple, resided down the street from my home. The building consisted of a chapel, numerous classrooms, a gymnasium doubling as an event venue, and a kitchen. The entirety of the interior seemed hidden under a layer of coarse gray carpet. The pews, the stairs, a third of the walls, were all covered in a soggy gray, the color of late January snow. Within the LDS Church, only men can give blessings aimed to heal and protect others. However, there are some exceptions hidden in the folds of doctrine that as a child were not revealed to me. The exceptions do not change the fact that the rewards of celestial glory are safeguarded by the men in power. They are the only ones endowed with priesthood authority. Women can receive blessings from this power, but cannot ordinarily wield it for themselves. In the very back corner of our refrigerator, on the top shelf, rests a half-gallon mason jar full of water. I ask my mother what it is for. It's my moon water, she responds. I fill it up with tap water and set it outside overnight during a full moon. The water gets infused with the moon's energy. I am impressed. This is a side of my mother I have not yet seen. I ask her, but then what do you do with it? And she says, I drink it. There's a belief that the moon's energy can be harnessed for our own personal gain. We can wield its power through our own rituals and practices. Every week of my childhood, the blood of Christ dripped down my throat, and when I was meant to think about all that he had done for my salvation, I found myself wanting more than what was given me. My mother's moon water, though, I could drown myself in, indulge myself in. I could drink and drink and drink until I finished the first jar and then prepare more with my own power endowed to me by the cosmos. I could brew tea and watch the infusion occur organically. I could fill a hot bath and mix the moon's energy with Epsom salts and lavender bubbles and soak my whole body in the spirit of my mother's rabbit. The Earth's moon is widely accepted to be a product of a major collision between proto-Earth and another planet roughly the size of Mars. These two bodies crashed together, reforming and combining and blending to form a new planet, a new Earth. However, a chunk of these two celestial bodies drifted away from the chaos and towards the depths of space. It didn't get too far. The silent child transformed into a body that continually pulls back towards its origins, an echo of the mothers who came before her, a daughter like myself who views her mother as a guide. I skip church one Sunday and then the next. It becomes routine. I bury my scriptures under my bed and cease to flip through their pages. They dust over with neglect. I find a new God in the books I choose to fill my world with. I say fuck occasionally. I go to one or two parties and drink warm beer that leaves a foul taste in my mouth, but I wash it down with the cold night air when I step outside. I look for signs. I listen to birds. I tell the moon goodnight when I see her. I no longer say my prayers, but a good kiss almost feels like one. I don't confess my sins to the bishop, but allow them to mix inside of me and shape me into who I am, for better or for worse. On the edge of the ocean in Alaska, I search for sea glass when the tide is stretched thin. I buy rose quartz and amethyst and jade and moonstone. I pick up rocks and stash them in full pockets. I'm still reverent, but in my own way. The planet that crashed into our proto-Earth to give birth to the moon is named Theia. Similarly to how our Earth is characterized as a feminine entity, a mother, so to speak, Theia is also identified as female. The name originates from Greek and means the divine one, or goddess. How odd is it then that the moon, born from two mothers, is stripped away of its own femininity and distinguished as a man? Why are the three women of my family, goddesses in their own right, characterized by the lack of a male authority under the scrutiny of the church? Now my Sunday mornings are spent snuggled in a warm bed, not on a stiff pew surrounded by gray, gray, gray. I wake up slow and tumble out of my blankets to brew coffee with lots of cream. When I'm at home, my mother drinks along with me. I read and write in the margins about how I'm sifting through the story that is being told to me. I continually both accept and challenge the established narratives and wish I learned the practice of discernment earlier in life. I think of my father and wonder where he is, but I don't think about God. Have I damned him in my disbelief? My dresses hang in my old closet because I haven't the heart to get rid of them yet. They are artifacts of my past, reminding me that I have freedom to refuse, to dismiss a belief that hurts. I watch the sky lighten little by little, and I notice a slight wisp of moon like a fallen breath fading in the dawn. A new beginning is on its way. The cycle of birth, death, and rebirth perpetuates. Each month, I wait for the rabbit's resurrection.
Let's start. This is absolutely beautiful. So next we have our second place winners. We have Nolani Hadfield reading poetry. Sarah Ellis is our fiction winner, but could not attend tonight, but I do want to mention Sarah and Yash Rivera reading nonfiction. So welcome. That way.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, like Brooke said, we don't really have to pick between our stuff, so it's kind of nice. But I have 3 poems. The first one is called Sea Salt Atonement. In the sand, near the wave line, getting thrown down again and again. Salt fire up your nose and gasping for more. More traipsing sun rays over the sea floor. More salt weaved through hair strands. More of that sharp sensation of your eyes on my sand-scrubbed back. Meanwhile, my feigned inattention falls lightly on my face, heavy on this sun-baked brain. Okay, and then the second one is about my grandmother. She lives in Arizona, and it's called Grandmother's Cotton Fields. Ferocious white bursting from crusted seams, speckled cotton fields baking in southeastern sunshine. Grandmother sits on the patio, presiding over the acres. Looking at her now, nails immaculately kept, corgi restless in her lap, her stroke seems distant. Lucky, so lucky, the doctor said. I guess her luck has refilled since her second husband withered away in an armchair, cancer cannibalizing his brain. In his absence, she has become a caretaker of less sentient things, conferring love upon ficus trees. Her elegant, arthritic fingers can no longer shuffle playing cards, contritely passing off the duty to younger visitors. Back home, 13 hours away, my great-aunt has remarried her ex-husband. She confessed that his idiosyncrasies and irresponsibility have grown moot, eclipsed entirely by the comfort of having someone exist a room away. Now, bereft a second husband, my grandmother lives alone. In the hospital, the doctors found a hole in the bottom of her heart, leaking deoxygenated blood back into the stream. My mother and I have been looking at smartwatches, ones with fall detection and heart monitoring. The internet says they're great for seniors living alone. A poor substitute for flesh and blood, but at least next time she won't have to wait for the neighbor to find her face down, blood vessels failing in the Arizona heat. At least next time she won't have to plead, fruitless, to the sprawling cotton fields and an empty house. And then this last one is kind of just about like getting too much sensory input almost. It's called Too Much Information. The brain was built for intake, to process and spit out emotion, to regurgitate all these insoluble truths into palatable bits. Coarse, sharp shit that stings, scrapes all the way down the esophagus, rendering you voiceless, hollowed out, voice box vibrating pointlessly, endlessly, angrily screaming. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yash Rivera. I use it, he, they pronouns. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my essay, Cyclical. A little context to this piece, I was taking Intro to Nonfiction, Claire Canfield's conflict class, and a child maltreatment class, and this essay came as a result of all three. I don't recommend taking a conflict class while you're taking nonfiction. But this essay is just kind of about trying to break this abuse cycle in my family by cutting ties with my parents while also trying not to abandon my siblings, which was like 2 different cycles. And I realized in Claire Canfield's class that it had a relation to Shu Yan, who, all you really need to know for this piece is Shu Yan. My IE, help is probably the best word in English for her. But she was my caretaker. She suddenly disappeared. I was told that she was sick, thought that she died, suddenly ran into her, and then had lots of complicated feelings for several years, which picks up at this piece in the essay. I remember when I first read The Help. My mother had recommended it to me. No surprise, she saw herself etched into the story of Mrs. Leafold, a young white mother who was much too young to be a mother. And I, a teenager at the time, saw myself embedded into the pages of Leafold's two-year-old daughter, May Mobley. Shu Yan was my Aibileen, my colored mama who'd raised enough kiddos that some were now as old as my own mother. I knew my place in the story when May Mobley asserted that Aibileen was her mother, but especially at the end of the book when Aibileen is fired. I still cry as I think of her last moment with May Mobley, as she looks her in the eye and reminds her, "You was kind, you was smart, you was important." I wondered what Cheyenne would say to me now. I wondered how May Mobley and Mrs. Leafold's story continues after Aibileen is gone, if Mrs. Leafold ever became a good mother. Or was she just eternally a pampered wife the way the older Chinese woman would label my mom? Would she forever retain the mannerisms, cognitions, and emotional maturity of a teenager? Would May Mobley ever be more than a doll to play with, more than a child to raise, just as I had been? Would Aibileen ever come back into May Mobley's life, or was this the end of that story? Would May Mobley sit in that house and wonder if Aibileen would ever return, or where she was, or if she even remembered her? I wondered if May Mobley would turn into her mother. Would she hire her own Aibileen and become the new Mrs. Leafold? Would she grow up pampering and coddling Mrs. Leafold in her childhood, then becoming that emotionally abused but emotionally abusive parent? Or maybe she would turn into me, stuck in the decision to keep the cycle going or start a new cycle for herself. It was the 27th of January of my 15th year when my relationship with my mother changed. Leaned back into the couch, I listened as my mother talked about the help with a friend, that she saw herself in the lives of the white housewives that fill the pages, at least in the ways they treated their help. She compared herself to the time Mrs. Leafold forced her black help to use a separate bathroom for fear of contamination. After all, she had fired one of her own out of disgust that she had showered in our home and used our hand towels to dry off. But the tale didn't end there. She confessed to firing another because she had demanded a raise. But what sent me into a massed episode of rage was when she told us about Cheyenne, laced with the excuse, "I was just a dumb 28-year-old." My mother and her friends had been having a competition to see who could pay their help the least. Cheyenne made about 5 kwai a day. At the time, that was the equivalent of 70 cents in U.S. currency. And slowly, she was making less and less and less. I wonder what went through Cheyenne's mind as she picked out my goodbye gifts. I wonder what she thought as birthday celebrations drew to the close, knowing that once we were in bed, she would tell my mom she quit. Tears built around my eyes as my mother unlayered each detail, building up to the end of that story. My hands started shaking. I couldn't look at my mom because suddenly I realized it was never my fault. It was hers. Thank you.
Just a quick reminder, we have the open mic sign up in the back, so if you're at all interested in reading, do sign up. So next up, we have our third place undergraduate winners. We have Rose Ivins. Hannah Smith also could not make it, but is a winner in fiction, and Luca Rampato reading nonfiction. So please welcome our readers.
Ooh, thank goodness I'm tall enough this time. Okay, great. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, like the other previous poetry winners have said, not a lot of content in my phone right here in front of me, but I'll read all of it to you guys. So the first piece that I'm going to be reading for you today is called A Sign of. God made no death, neither hath he pleasure in the destruction of the living. If not God building forms, outcasting molds of man and mountains much alike, then who would? We read under maples of death with a rift in his dark cloak, which is why we shake these signs out of anything. Surely it means something. If not God itself, the dragonfly on the river is most certainly your sister. Consolation comes as scripture, tech disturbances, quails, dreams, sun dawning, most commonly red wine. Anything. Surely it means something. If not God allowing defiance of boundaries, how do you account for the cat caught crossing our path? Or the least shiver when a name is called? It is proof. Without data, facts, or anything. Surely it means something. The second piece was actually part of a collection done for NaPoWriMo, National Poetry Writing Month, which is April every year. This is last year that I wrote this, but this is documenting a single moment from every day. So this piece is called 7:30 a.m. Tuesday Extinguisher. How shocking, shaped like a pyre. Face up, fess up, fire. I'm trying to cup my hands over everything that can't be held. Down the throat of a canyon, it glints, splits, oxygen choking the light it emits. The final piece I'm reading for you today is actually an acrobastic piece done after a painting that was in the Nora Eccles Harrison Museum of Art up on Logan campus a while ago. The piece is up in number 2 by Frederick Hammersley, painted in 1961. Hammersley was a Utah painter, part of the hard edge expressionist movement. So this is modeled after one of his paintings, and the title of it is Crackler. It's also in a poem. The sun has already set across its black horizon as we discuss the piece in whispers, so as not to disturb it. I am searching for a meaning deeper than the surface layer of paint. You point out to me all these little Rorschach bits. I see a football and you see an observatory. I see a derby-eared dog where you see Puss in Boots. And no one makes me laugh like this. While I show you the gallery, it's the latest Yo-Yo Ma concerto. Somewhere within, I have already seen every piece in this exhibit, so now I watch you. And my favorite part is not the meaning, nor the marrow. Instead, I admire the crackler. Later, under the blankets we have pinned to the windowsill to build ourselves a sacred keep. I show you a purple-green bruise. You show me a yellow-pink blemish. You show me your cracked lips, and I show you my dried arms. After all that we have seen today, perhaps these things ought to be ugly. But no, beautiful is still the easiest word I find for you. I can only hope that when we are 63 and written up and down with the hairline fractures of age, you will still let me stare, like I'm admiring my favorite piece in the show. Thank you all.
Okay, what is up, my mammals? My name is Luca, and this is I wrote this for 1010 composition, and the only thing you need to know is that I'm a marine science major, so this is obviously about my favorite marine animal, and it's also about an eating disorder, but that's not important. In 2009, a giant isopod located in a Japanese aquarium went on a 5-year hunger strike. Giant isopod number 1 was found in 2007 along the coast of Baja, California. The aquatic pill bug was then subsequently depressurized, packed in an airtight box that could fit its 12-inch long body, and shipped some 5,955 miles to Toba, Japan, where it would spend the rest of its life in captivity. I was freshly 14 when I first learned about this giant isopod. Having just started high school and coming out of a multiple-month-long quarantine, I was not doing too hot. After those months spent in quarantine, I had managed to develop an eating disorder, something not too uncommon among depressed and isolated 14-year-olds. It was decided by my psychiatrist that I was unable to keep living without treatment, and I was subsequently shipped a shorter 86 miles to Salt Lake City, where I would live and receive in-person treatment until I was deemed fit enough to return to everyday society. Giant isopod number 1 lived a relatively normal life, as normal as one can live in a glass tank. Then, on January 2nd, 2009, it stopped eating. There was no apparent catalyst to this decision. In the wild, it's not uncommon for giant isopods to go years without eating. On the ocean floor, food is few and far between. Nutrient-rich whale falls are the preferred meal for giant isopods. However, it's rare for a whale to die and for its body to make it all the way down to the bottom of the deep sea. This wasn't the barren ocean, though. This was an aquarium, where meals were guaranteed and food was never far. It wasn't that I didn't like food. Food was objectively good to me. It was that in a world where so much had been uncontrollable, I could have complete control of what went into my body. This was my way of coping with the rising amount of uncertainty in my life. I didn't understand why I was considered a danger to myself, or why I needed to go into treatment. I think this is why I became so fascinated with giant isopod number 1. We were one and the same. Caretakers at Toba Aquarium tried to find a solution to giant isopod number 1's seemingly meaningless protest. It wasn't sick, and the food was fine. Regular attempted feedings would continue throughout the years with no success. Word had
started to spread on Japanese news, and people began to flock to the aquarium to see the famed anorexic giant isopod, pressing their faces against the glass to catch a fleeting glimpse of the crustacean turning away from its meal. I was officially diagnosed with anorexia nervosa at the beginning of October 2020. This was right as I was entering the treatment facility, which would become my new normal until I was fixed. I was incredibly angry at everyone but myself, and I had vowed to resist any form of help. After all, I didn't need any help. Treatment was hard. I wasn't allowed to go home during the week, and my behavior was constantly monitored. Everything I did and ate was recorded. I was forbidden from using the bathroom without someone there to watch me. Disgusting hospital food was pushed onto me, and I would be punished if I refused to eat it. Giant isopod number 1 remained a mystery to everyone involved. It wasn't a question for me, though. I knew why I wasn't eating. After all, we were in the same situation. Captured from home, relocated somewhere strange, food forced upon us daily, and the gawking of strangers and medical professionals alike. I knew that the stress and resentment of living as a spectacle had pushed giant isopod number 1 into protest, just like it had done to me. Giant isopod number 1 had begun to realize how desperate the public was for it to eat. Instead of backing down, it had learned to trick its caretakers. During feedings, number 1 would carry its meals to the far side of the tank and move its mouth as if to simulate eating. The excitement caused by this apparent development was short-lived as people realized it wasn't actually eating the freshly caught eels and mackerel. It seemed to be mocking them. "You can't make me," is what I think it was trying to say. Or maybe it was the name. If I was named Giant Luca, I think I would stop eating too. Like giant isopod number 1, I was stubborn and guarded. I had started to employ the same techniques I knew the crustacean had used before me. I would bide my time, eat my meals, and drink my Ensures. As soon as I graduated treatment, I would go right back to the way I was before. I just had to be patient. Unfortunately, patience is not one of my many virtues.
Thank you to our readers, our writers, our artists. I am so pleased to share all of this with you, their loved ones, their community. It's a really special night, and we get to see the beautiful work that comes out of USU, and it's really special to share it with all of you. So now for our open mic, we'll send the sign-in sheet around as well. Each reader will have up to 7 minutes. If they go past that limit, they will be politely clapped off. If you do not wish to be recorded for YouTube archive, please tell us before you read. So I will go ahead and grab the sign-up sheet.
You go ahead first.
Kick us off.
This is good. Yeah. Well, this match is pretty much anything, so it's good. The great ones, I usually bring the great ones. This is only the 14th time I've learned. Before I watched it.
Grab some cookies. I'll send this sign-up sheet around once we get started. First up, we have Denise, then Jan, then Nathan. Okay.
This is her time.
everyone. I want to thank all the students. Your work was amazing, and it's really wonderful. I just retired from Utah State in the art department, and it's really great to see you all coming out to share your work publicly. And thank you for also, submitting your work to the magazine and get to do some cool artwork too. So I have 3 poems for you all tonight. The first one is called Cognizant. I just want to preface that I'm working on a manuscript with the help from a friend of mine, so some of these I may have read in the past, but they've been reworked, so try not precise. Cognizance. On a day such as this, when the sky is veiled by migrating clouds, tender fingers of sunlight reach out in all directions, encircling the earth in a luminous embrace. Something stirs. Down in the fertile darkness, even the dusky eyelids of the restless rootlets sense the touch of light. Their yearning rises, swelling into the root thighs, surging up into the trunk, streaming out into the braided branches, flowing out into the tiny twig tips that tremble in anticipation of the still, unformed leaf buds, full of possibility. You too receive the light through your translucent skin. Lift now your face. Open wide your arms, your hands. Breath by verdant breath, it will fill you, illuminating the furthest corners of your benighted being. Standing now in kinship with the green world, what will you remember that is too important to forget? And this is called Wondering. If I invite you to the house of my heart, you must remove your shoes and put them outside the door so the dusky residue of the world is left behind. If you enter through the waiting portal, I will offer you a seat in the pile of pillows and tea in a warm clay cup. Perhaps we will sit, sipping side by side, knees nearly touching, swaddled in silence. We might watch the sunlight stretch long across the polished floor until it reaches us. I do not know what will happen then. Maybe I will never know, unless you come over, unless you come in. And this one is called Finding Our Way. Next time we start to argue, let's turn out the lights. Or better yet, step into the closet and close the door. Let's stuff your rumpled pants against the space at the bottom so not even the slimmest ray of light can sneak in. In the dark, you cannot see my grimaced lips. In the dark, I cannot see your creased forehead. In the dark, we cannot see. We will not know which way to fling sharp words or shoot steely looks. In the dark, even harsh words get lost. In the dark, we will lose track of our hard edges, struggle to find orientation, reach out as if for the first time. In the dark, we are soft, undefined flesh, merging with soft flesh, the beginning of tender forgiveness. Thank you. Hello.
My piece is called My Not So Near Death Experiences. As a small child, I had an irrational fear of fire. I remember having terrible nightmares about fire. Sometimes I would be trapped by fire, or I would dream that whatever I touched would burst into flames. As a family living in West Point, New York, we went out to dinner almost every Sunday night. Our restaurant of choice was the Maplehurst Inn, which I always loved. They had wonderful food, a great lawn to run around and play in while the adults were enjoying cocktails before dinner, and bunnies running free throughout the property. I think we even got to adopt some bunnies to take home. Suddenly, we stopped going there for dinner and went to another place nearby, the Cornwall Inn. I didn't like it as much and asked my mother why we weren't going to the Maplehurst Inn. She replied that there had been a fire at the Maplehurst Inn and we won't be able to go until it is remodeled. I didn't think too much about that until the time came when we went back to the Maplehurst Inn for dinner. I was 5 years old. I remember excusing myself at the beginning of the meal and went to the restroom where I stayed for a long time. My mother finally came to check on me. I was literally sick to my stomach. I was convinced the place was going to burst into flames and burn down again. We had to leave the restaurant without getting to eat our dinner. My parents were not happy. When I was 11, I snuck out of the house one Saturday to go visit a horse we owned at the local stables on the Army base we lived. I was a fairly good rider and knew how to saddle and bridle the horse on my own. I got the horse ready, jumped on, and went galloping out of the stable area into the adjoining fields and into the woods. It turns out the horse loved to jump over streams, over logs, over things I didn't even see. It was the most thrilling ride. I guess I could have died. No one ever knew I did this until now. When I was 15, I stole the family car and went on a joyride in a snowstorm. I freaked out when a bright light showed up on the dashboard and cut my joyriding short, fearing something was wrong with the car. I casually asked my father the next time I was in the car with him what that light was all about. Turns out it was nothing more than the bright light indicator. I could have died by my inexperience driving in a snowstorm, or by my father finding out I took the car out with no permission and without a license or driving experience. When I was 17, it was common to hitchhike. I lived on an Army base full of GIs and regularly hitched rides to school and back. Imagine what could have happened. When I was 18, I ditched school with 8 of my friends. I had a car, so we all packed in the car, not a one of us wearing seatbelts, and I drove 90 miles away to the state capitol. We were crammed in very tight. I couldn't even see out of the rearview mirror for all the people sitting on top of each other. The boy sitting closest to me as I was driving wanted to know how fast the car would go. Since I had a raging crush on him, I wanted to please him. So I got the car up to 105 miles an hour. Then he told me that as I approached curves, it is safer to speed up inside the curve. Of course, I did that too. I could have died that day, along with my 8 friends. I also remember that same guy daring me to drink an entire bottle of vodka, which I did. I don't think he was a very good influence on me. When I was 26, I gave birth to my first daughter. I was in induced labor for 26 hours. There was no drugs provided. I felt like I would die. When I was 32, I left my cheating husband, moved 2,500 miles away with my 2 children, aged 2 and 5, and started my life over. The old me had indeed died, as a new and improved version rose like a phoenix. When I was 58, I divorced my cheating second husband. I was shattered. That me died a very slow death, and my old friend the phoenix did rise, but not as high. Thank you.
All right, my name is Nathan Wainwright. I'm an English teacher, and so I always feel like, because I stand in front of a bunch of middle schoolers all day, like I should be pretty comfortable in front of a crowd, but I am not. I'm like, I shake. So, we'll see how this goes. I have 3 poems today. My first one is called Scathing and Volatile. There is a bomb in my basement. It is not made of pipe and metal miscellany, though shrapnel has shredded my face. burning my lips, my cheeks, my eyes. It is not nuclear, though its radiation is seeping easily past this deficient hazmat suit of skin into my disloyal bones and killing me slowly. And it has no timer, wires, gears, nor any moving part, though I hear it ticking, ticking, ticking. McCall's mom keeps sending them, 1 or 2 a month, nothing crazy, all wrapped up nice and neat with colored paper and frilly bows. Usually we open them together, a puff of incense and stale cigarettes. Then they go off, and we have to diffuse their destruction, putting out the fires on our couch and our carpet and our hair. Sometimes we can laugh about it later, other times we can't. This bomb in my basement, though, feels different, bigger, and stronger, more likely to level cities and claim lives. I don't know what to do with it, but hold on and hope that it's a dud. But still, each night, I wander down the uneven steps to our basement, let the door creak open and bang close behind me, and I sit in the dark with the bomb in my lap. I pore over it, slowly, carefully, breathlessly, searching for the fuse, and searching for the fuse, and still searching for the fuse, and please, God, don't ever let McCall find the fuse. My second poem is titled, I'm not being ironic or sardonic when I say this with complete sincerity that George Washington, probably would have had an absolute blast with an AR-15, but does that idea have any real relevancy when considering our modern history? That's the title. Okay. And when they don't ban guns, when the shooters come, and the teachers are armed but untrained, and when the shooters put me in my grave, what will my family have to claim? It won't be the money that they'll never see from the payouts I've been empty promised, and it won't be in knowing this tragedy is going to make a difference to all that's dismissed. And it won't be some lie about forgiveness and pride, about loving or hating thy neighbor. It'll be a sad day, then quickly erased by the shooting the next state over. But what do I care now? I'm dead on the ground, my chest bleeding full of Armalite rounds, my brain splattered upwards and heading southbound, my body abandoned, still waiting around. All of this for a gun. My last poem today is titled after a meme. It's titled, I Can't Believe He Didn't Cry During Titanic. Do Men Even Have Feelings? When I was a pallbearer at my grandfather's funeral, my cousin William's shoulders shook in front of me, and I heard my cousin Spencer's muffled moans behind me. Between them both, I bore the pall, silently and stolidly. And in 10th grade, when my mom woke me up at 4:28 in the morning to say that my dad had fallen off an overpass and was very nearly gone, she gave me 2 choices. Go to school like normal, or go to see my dear, dying dad. I opted for school. I had a test that day after all. And then my rabbit died. She was old, almost 10 years, ancient as the earth for a rabbit. She was going senile way, way, way before that. She'd pop her lion's mane out of her cage and peer around our apartment like she could see God or some shit. She'd stare at the wall, stare at the wall, stare at the wall. I tried it once too, but all I saw was a wall. And then she was shaking, seizing, and jerking. Her frail and bony body barely fit in the palm of my hands, and I felt it all until she passed. And in the parking lot of the clinic, where she should have met a quick and easy end, I hunched my wretched body over hers and sobbed as if anyone cared but me. I'm not sure what that means, that I cry more for rabbits than I do for parents, but sometimes it scares me how much it doesn't scare me, that I might be inhuman.
Jan, Nathan, thank you for kicking us off so beautifully. Next, we have Addie, Tanner, and Eli.
Hi guys, I had an art piece, so that's why I'm here, but hey, I love poetry, so.
Which one was yours?
Oh, the last one, I'm Addie. It's The first one is titled Wallflower. I am a little blue flower in the crack in a wall. Fumes of fresh cream-colored paint arise, there's nowhere to flee. At first I'm hesitant to feel anything at all, lonely yet oddly enticed, admired like diamonds, then forgotten like memories. Trapped in a mind so fragile and small compared to others. Freedom's not something I know much about, falling into what's meant to escape here forever. Watching and waiting for more than a quick glance, take my picture and place it in a woodworked frame, become my twin, a wallflower. And then this next one is called Empty Peanut Butter Jar. Utter disgust fills the fibers of my soul as I unscrew that cherry red lid to find an empty peanut butter jar. It was still in the cupboard next to golden honey and Himalayan salt. I just wanted a sandwich. Peanut butter and jelly on wheat, but like so many other things, the universe decided it wasn't meant to be. Maybe I could salvage the last morsels left by some unimaginable creature, scrape the sides and make use of what I've got, gather the sticky sweetness from the plastic prison it resides, smearing on my hands, the knife, the granite countertops, your BYU shirt. How much did I really want that sandwich for my lunch? Why was I willing to make such a mess for something so small, so little, just like you? Time and time again I gave, scooping my happiness, sadness, hope, bit by bit until my jar was empty, and instead of filling me up, you found another. Replaced my salty sweet nature that fills your mouth with temporary joy with Nutella, though Nutella such a sin on your lips. And then this last one is titled Dishes in the Sink. Dishes in the sink, left alone, unattended. Get up. Limbs freeze, a small twitch here and there, smoky haze surrounds the body on the floor. You need to do the dishes. Pierce the skin with your nails, breathe in, breathe out, stop breathing. Get up off the ground. Why did the sun love the moon? What is the name? Move. My name doesn't sound real. Addie, Addie, Addie? Nonsense. Do the fucking dishes. I can't. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tanner. I came for Eva, and they helped me a lot with my poetry, so I was really glad to hear their poems. But I've got two for you guys. This first one's called 7th Place in Mario Kart. She showed me her scars, woven with shortcomings and her failures, natural as any contours could be, tempting me to follow their path. Her snide tone was masked by her velvety tongue. Sweet nothing, she whispered to me, caressing my back. She charted the course, guided by her own fleshy map. The siren calls. For my soul, she bleeds. For my heart, it bleeds. Salt the wounds, break free, break free. She's my cartographer, my mistress, my personal muse. She bumps her red wine, stains her cashmere sweater. Steer the conversation, I feign commitment, teasing vows, tracing the path with her ink and quill, visiting the grid of my own skin. The sirens call. For my soul she pleads, for my heart it bleeds. Rub with dirt, take heed. I love her, she paves the way. I follow from afar, afraid to set course through the trampled foliage. I wait at the forest edge by the visitor's sign. Need a break from piano. Beautiful out. July 12th, 2009. Rainy. I came alone. Needed fresh air. April 2nd, 2012. Lost my group. Guys, I'll be back in town. November 30th, 2018. World's gone to shit. Had to come back here. Darker than I remembered. March 23rd, 2025. I closed the camp log, darting my eyes to the horizon. The sun sets just beyond the hills. The light slicing through the treetops. I lie in wait of night, tracing her trail guides in my mind. And then this next one one's about my mom's relationship with her grandma and kind of how that relates to, my mom's relationship with her mom and how that kind of affects me. And this one's called The Tree Doesn't Fall Far from the Apple. They tore down the tree in my grandmother's backyard. I didn't know how to process the sight. I could have sworn the shapings matched the color of her shag rug. my mother sobbed, grabbing me as her nearest comfort. It's so cold, but I gave my mom my coat. Maybe I'll find warmth in her fallen leaves. Did I get my father's fiery red bark? Am I a quaking aspen tree, resting in the grass on my mother's half? The sharp pines poke my gloves, through my gloves, gathering branches, collecting logs for this winter's warmth, just the pieces that'll warm our house. My mother holds a knotted stick, clutching it to her heart. How does she hang on to wood that's rotted out? Did I get my father's fiery red bark? Am I a quaking aspen tree, resting in the grass on my mother's half? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Eli. In Jennifer's nonfiction class this semester, I wrote a couple of kind of short scenes and segments that never actually made it into that final essay. So today I'll be reading one of my favorite ones that I could see one day turning into a kind of beginning of an essay of its own. To learn to be human takes careful, constant observation. For me, in my formative years, the subject of my observations was always my older sister, Ella. 2 years older than me, she is always just one step ahead in me in life. Old enough to have everything figured out for me by the time I came along, but not so old as to ever lose relatability either. One infamous story under my parents' roof is from a Halloween when Ella and I were toddlers. Mom and Dad loved for all the trick-or-treaters to stop by the house and to give them candy. They kept the candy bucket by the door, but on top of the dresser, out of reach of the toddlers, or so they thought. They also knew that Ella was an avid rules follower. She cared deeply about staying safe. Even if she could see the candy bucket, she'd never climb up on the dresser to try and retrieve it. They didn't need to worry about her. And I was 2, maybe 3 years old, barely able to crawl. I certainly hadn't had a mind developed enough to put together a plan to reach the candy. It was too many layers of abstraction. I would have needed the object permanence to realize that the bucket held candy, the spatial reasoning to realize that I could climb up the cabinet to reach the bucket, and the logic to realize that if I could reach the bucket, then I could eat the candy it held. I wouldn't put together such a plan all on my own, not when there were other harmless mischief to get up to that was more immediately within reach. So our parents didn't need to worry about me either. What they did not account for was the two of us together. Ella the brains, Eli the means. Ella explained the grand plan and final reward at the end and plodded me in the right direction. Up I climbed until I sat atop the drawers. Mom and Dad turned around the corner in the entryway to find me handing down candy to Ella, the both of us happily munching our way through the chocolate. This is the kind of direction Ella provided early on in life. Most of it was perhaps less mischievous in nature. I usually managed that end of things all on my own, and more effectively than anything Ella would devise. But the principle holds true. To me, the world worked as Ella showed me it did. Thank you.
Very much for reading these beautiful, heartfelt pieces. And thank you, of course, to our winners, our beautiful art, our prose, our poetry. Very beautiful. This summer's Helicon West events will be held the fourth Thursday of May, June, and August, so please do join us. As we wrap up, grab cookies. If there are cookies, take as many as you want or can. And please, if you're able and willing, help us to stack the chairs. This special contest issue is now live. So you can find it at St. Hollow and see all of the beautiful art and see the prose in its entirety. Enjoy the hard work of our St. Hollow staff who made all of this possible. So once again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our readers. Thank you to our artists. And please enjoy cookies. Please help us stack chairs. And one more round of applause for everyone. Thank you.